Picture this: Kurt Russell, the all-American hero, the man who could switch from Disney's Boy Next Door to Snake Plissken in Escape from New York. A star who built his legacy on charm, grit, and that trademark smirk. But here's what fans don't always know. Behind that easygoing smile, Russell carried grudges. For decades, he was called one of Hollywood's nice guys, but even nice guys hit their breaking point. And when Russell clashed with co-stars, it wasn't just a disagreement. It was war. Silent glares, heated words, friendships broken for good. Over his long career, 6 actors in particular ended up on his blacklist. And topping that list, his co-star in Tombstone, Val Kilmer. When Tombstone hit theaters in 1993, fans saw one of the greatest westerns ever made. Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, Val Kilmer as the unforgettable Doc Holliday. On screen, their chemistry was legendary. Off-screen, it was a powder keg. At first, Russell admired Kilmer's commitment to the role. Kilmer practically lived as Doc Holliday. Sickly, sarcastic, every line dripping with venom. But it didn't take long before admiration turned into frustration. Kilmer, known for his difficult reputation, often refused to follow direction. He'd improvise lines, stretch scenes longer than planned, and challenge Russell's authority on set. That last part was key, because although officially George P. Cosmatos was credited as director, many insiders later revealed that Russell was really calling the shots behind the camera. And Val Kilmer, he didn't like that one bit. According to crew members, Russell and Kilmer had heated exchanges over how certain scenes should play out. Kilmer wanted more screen time for Doc Holliday, while Russell, focused on Wyatt Earp, felt the film was in danger of being hijacked. One insider even claimed Russell threatened to walk off set if Kilmer didn't fall in line. The tension was so thick that castmates often had to separate them during breaks, and while the film became a cult classic, the experience left Russell soured on Kilmer permanently. Years later, when asked about working with Kilmer, Russell offered only vague praise, carefully avoiding anything too positive. Meanwhile, Kilmer remained silent, never addressing the feud directly. But those who were there knew. The Earp-Holliday friendship we saw on screen was held together by duct tape and professionalism. The result? A masterpiece forged in fire, one that cost Russell a friendship he never wanted again. But if you thought battling with Val Kilmer's ego was explosive, wait until you hear about the rivalry Russell carried from his Disney days with William Katt. Long before Escape from New York or The Thing, Kurt Russell was Disney's golden boy. Through the late 60s and early 70s, he headlined a string of wholesome comedies that made him the studio's most bankable young star. But even in that squeaky clean era, Russell found himself butting heads with none other than William Katt. In 1975's The Strongest Man in the World, Russell reprised his role as Dexter Riley, the brainy but charming college kid who gains superhuman powers from a lab experiment. Enter William Katt, another rising young actor Disney hoped to groom. On paper, it was supposed to be a light-hearted, family-friendly romp, but behind the scenes, there was tension, because both Russell and Katt wanted to be Disney's next leading man. Katt, hungry for recognition, reportedly tried to upstage Russell in several scenes. He'd push for more lines, exaggerate his delivery, and even angle himself in shots to pull focus. Russell, already protective of his carefully built Disney image, was furious. Crew members remember Russell confronting Katt, bluntly telling him to stop stealing scenes. Katt snapped back, arguing that the film needed more energy. The arguments were frequent enough that production slowed, with the director stepping in to calm egos. In the end, Russell won the battle. He remained Disney's go-to star, while Katt faded from the studio's radar. But Russell never forgot the feeling of being undermined. Years later, he privately referred to Katt as the kid who tried too hard. The irony: Katt went on to star in The Greatest American Hero, while Russell transformed into a Hollywood heavyweight. Their rivalry fizzled, but the resentment stuck. For Russell, it was his first taste of a co-star he truly hated working with, and it wouldn't be his last. But if you thought the Disney rivalries were petty, just wait until you hear about the war zone that erupted between Russell and Sean Young on the Presidio. By the late 1980s, Kurt Russell was no longer Disney's golden boy. He was a full-fledged Hollywood star, so when he signed on to the Presidio, 1988, a crime thriller set against a military backdrop, expectations were high. But instead of a smooth production, Russell found himself in the middle of one of the most miserable filming experiences of his career, thanks to Sean Young. Sean Young was already infamous in Hollywood for being difficult. Known for clashing with directors and co-stars, she had a reputation for pushing boundaries and challenging authority. On the Presidio, those habits collided head-on with Kurt Russell's no-nonsense professionalism. From the start, the chemistry was off. Russell reportedly tried to keep things light, joking around between takes, but Young dismissed him as too controlling. Worse, she often showed up late to set, sparking arguments that delayed filming. Crew members later admitted that Russell grew so frustrated he'd storm off during breaks just to cool down. Their on-screen romance didn't help matters. In the film, Russell and Young's characters were supposed to share a fiery attraction, but behind the scenes, it was ice cold. Russell hated Young's constant questioning of the script, while she accused him of being dismissive of her ideas. One insider recalled, "It was like watching two magnets push away from each other. No matter how much the director tried, they just wouldn't click." The fallout was brutal. While the Presidio performed modestly at the box office, critics slammed the lack of chemistry between its leads, and Russell privately vowed he'd never work with Sean Young again. For an actor who prided himself on being easy to work with, the feud left a lasting scar. Sean Young became one of the few names Kurt Russell openly avoided for the rest of his career. But if you thought fiery arguments with Sean Young were bad, wait until you hear what happened when Russell had to share the screen with Steven Seagal, and their egos collided in executive decision. By the mid-1990s, Kurt Russell was Hollywood royalty. Versatile, respected, and easy to work with. Steven Seagal, he was the opposite. The martial arts star had exploded onto the scene with hits like Under Siege. But behind the tough guy persona, Seagal carried a reputation for being arrogant, controlling, and downright unpleasant. So when the two were cast together in Executive Decision, 1996, insiders knew sparks were bound to fly. On paper, the roles were clear. Russell would play David Grant, a brainy intelligence analyst forced into action. Seagal, meanwhile, was cast as Colonel Austin Travis, the no-nonsense military man leading a dangerous mission. But from day one, Seagal didn't like the arrangement. According to crew members, Seagal bristled at the idea that his character wouldn't survive past the first act. He allegedly complained that audiences wouldn't accept him being killed off so early, and tried lobbying to change the script. Russell, who valued professionalism and sticking to the story, found the constant whining unbearable. Things got even worse when it came to stunts. Seagal refused to perform certain sequences, insisting they were beneath him. Russell, by contrast, threw himself into every challenge. Crew insiders later joked that Russell, not Seagal, was the real action star on set. The two men clashed repeatedly, with Russell growing increasingly frustrated at Seagal's attitude. At one point, Russell reportedly told producers, "If he doesn't want to be here, cut him loose." Ironically, that's exactly what happened, at least in the movie. Seagal's character dies early in a shocking twist, leaving Russell to carry the film as the unlikely hero. Audiences loved it, critics praised it, and Seagal, he was furious. For Kurt Russell, the experience cemented his disdain for Seagal. He'd never work with him again, and often dodged questions about him in later interviews. But if you thought Seagal's ego was tough to handle, just wait until you hear about the emotional breakdown Russell endured while working with Kathleen Quinlan on Breakdown. In 1997, Kurt Russell starred in Breakdown, a nail-biting thriller about a man searching for his missing wife. The film became a sleeper hit and is now considered one of Russell's most underrated performances. But behind the suspenseful story was another kind of tension, between Russell and his co-star Kathleen Quinlan. On screen, Russell and Quinlan played a married couple whose relationship was put through hell. But off-screen, their working relationship was just as strained. Quinlan, known for her intense preparation and deeply emotional approach, often wanted to rehearse scenes over and over to dig into her character. Russell, meanwhile, came from the Eastwood school of thought. Fewer takes, more instinct, keep it moving. It didn't take long before the two styles clashed. According to crew members, Quinlan frequently questioned direction and pushed for retakes, sometimes long after Russell felt the scene was nailed. Her insistence wore on him, and insiders say Russell grew visibly irritated, often pacing while she argued her case. The breaking point reportedly came during one of the most emotional scenes, the sequence where Quinlan's character is abducted. Quinlan wanted to shoot it multiple times, chasing different emotional nuances. Russell, already drained, snapped, telling her they weren't making an acting class, they were making a movie. The set fell silent. Quinlan fired back, accusing Russell of being dismissive of her craft. Though the tension never turned physical, the atmosphere remained icy for the rest of filming. The irony: their on-screen chemistry worked perfectly because of that unease. Audiences felt the distance, the mistrust, the tension, and it fit the story. Still, when cameras stopped rolling, Russell made sure to avoid Quinlan whenever possible. They delivered a great movie, but at the cost of a working relationship that never continued. But if you thought clashing with Kathleen Quinlan was rough, wait until you hear what happened when Russell faced one of Hollywood's wildest personalities, Oliver Reed. By the time Kurt Russell crossed paths with Oliver Reed, the British actor was already infamous. Reed had a reputation as one of Hollywood's most unpredictable wild men, an actor of immense talent, but one who was just as likely to show up drunk, start a fight, or derail a scene as he was to deliver brilliance. Russell, ever the professional, expected discipline. He thrived on set environments where actors respected the craft and kept things moving. So when he worked with Reed during early drafts and rehearsals for projects later tied to Gladiator and other productions, the clash was immediate. Reed would stumble onto set late, sometimes visibly hungover, and launch into wild improvisations. He ignored blocking, threw off camera angles, and even mocked directors who tried to reel him in. Russell, who valued precision, couldn't stand it. One story from insiders captures it perfectly. During a tense rehearsal, Reed began slurring through his lines, waving a prop sword wildly as if it were a toy. Russell stopped the scene cold, dropped character, and reportedly snapped, "Are we making a movie or a circus act?" Reed fired back with insults, calling Russell too stiff and American vanilla. Crew members had to separate the two men before things escalated further. The tension poisoned the collaboration. Russell refused to shoot certain scenes unless Reed was sober, and Reed, in turn, mocked Russell's straight-laced professionalism as boring. By the time filming wrapped, the two men could barely look at each other. The fallout was clear. Russell avoided Reed entirely afterward and privately called him one of the most unbearable co-stars he'd ever worked with. For Russell, Oliver Reed wasn't just a difficult colleague, he was a nightmare he never wanted to relive. But if you thought drunken sword fights and explosive tempers were bad, just wait until you hear how all these feuds shaped Kurt Russell's legacy in Hollywood. Kurt Russell has always worn the mask of Hollywood's nice guy, the dependable star, the man who could light up a set without a hint of drama. But peel back the curtain and you find a career scarred by rivalries, grudges, and battles that nearly derailed entire productions. From Val Kilmer's ego on Tombstone to William Katt's early attempts at stealing scenes, from Sean Young's chaos on The Presidio to Steven Seagal's unbearable arrogance in Executive Decision, from Kathleen Quinlan's endless rehearsals in Breakdown to Oliver Reed's drunken madness, Russell may have survived them all, but he never forgot. And that's the secret. Even the actors we think of as calm, friendly, and unshakable carry scars from the battles fought behind the camera. For Kurt Russell, those 6 co-stars were more than just bad memories. They were reminders that in Hollywood, legends are forged not only by talent, but by the enemies they overcome. If you enjoyed this dive into the darker side of Kurt Russell's career, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning. There are plenty more Hollywood feuds, grudges, and secrets waiting to be revealed. And trust me, you won't want to miss the next one.